Taurus 2, an electrical storm. There is within us the same power that we can observe in a thunderstorm. And most people don't allow that to show. They're afraid of it. It's very deeply forbidden by society to be that way, to express these passions that we have within us. We capitulate, we give up on who we are and how we are in order to become acceptable and fulfill the requirements of society to be in keeping with the lowest common denominator of everything. It's not particularly wrong of society to require that, because that's what enables civilization to be peaceful and dependable. However, on the individual level, we mustn't let go of the passion within us. We can't possibly deal with outer situations and transform our life situations into what we want them to be unless we have the equivalent willingness to transform ourselves inwardly. And the way to do that is often allowing a cathartic release. The truth is that all of us were badly parented, without exception. We didn't get what we needed as children. And the emotional hurt, the pain, the dysfunctionality within us that arose as a result of that has to be healed, has to be released. And some parts of that can be trained out of us. We can just learn what we should have been doing instead of what we were made to do. And the parents aren't bullying necessarily to make us to do things. They're just doing what they do, and we copy them. So it's that unconscious process that trains us to become like them, whether anybody knows that or not. That's what happens. And that might not be suitable for us, because we're not really like them in every way. Of course not. It gets worse if they do bully us and they can't deal with their own stuff and put it onto us. Then that gets a lot worse. And one way or another, tensions are built up with us from a very, very early age indeed, that can only really be released in a cathartic episode. Now, if we can't deal with that inwardly through therapy, then what happens is it comes into our lives as a requirement, and we're forced to go through a major episode, a stormy episode in our life, filled with lightning and thunder and situations that we just cannot put up with in the long term. We just have to deal with them in the short term, and to hope that that is enough, that we can release our pent-up emotions and that we get them out. So outbursts of anger and tearfulness and rage and things like that actually have a therapeutic effect upon the body. The best thing to do with that is not to put those feelings onto someone else. That's just perpetuating the problem to some extent. The best thing to do is to release these passionate energies in a healthy way. Sport is good, of course, and just dance is good, and just some way to express yourself emotionally to the fullest extent of your power. Now, what happens if you don't is that you begin to lose power. And if you deny these passions, it's almost a self-inflicted harm of training yourself in disempowerment. These passions that society doesn't allow have to be allowed individually. We have to get it out there, or we become powerless, impotent, therefore. We're just robotic servant of the system, rather than a free soul expressing itself through our physical body here on earth. The issue is to do with fear. If we express our passions, then we become a little bit frightened that, first of all, it might hurt someone, or therefore lose social influence, warmth of loving affection. We might lose something precious to us if we let this stuff out. But there's another hidden fear, most particularly noticeable in men, I found, is men would argue that they hold in their rage in order not to hurt people. But actually, in a group workshop, you can see that the reason they're holding in their rage is not for that purpose at all. It's because there's a fear that even when all of their energy is expended, they still haven't got the job done. So a lot of men fear themselves to be powerless, which is why they never go to the end of their power. They don't want it proved. I would suspect there's an equivalent for women. I just haven't been in women-only workshops, of course. So I think that one of the reasons that we don't get it all out there, all of our emotionality, our passionate feelings, is because we have some doubts whether that will do the job. We can cry our heart out and still be in the presence of someone who is unloving and uncaring, and all of our tears have done no good. And we can shout and we can blame, and it just doesn't have an effect. And we feel worse because then there's nothing in reserve. This is what we've trained ourselves to believe, that we need these passions to be effective for us to claim power in the world. In fact, of course, there's a better way to deal with this, and that is to become familiar with that energy, the passion within, and use it in a channeled way, in a controlled way. Bring it out sometimes, but not to the nth degree, not beyond your ability to control it. It's a bit like taming a wild beast within, isn't it? So if you were training a dog, if you wanted a guard dog, you want a vicious one or it wouldn't do its job properly. But you've got to train it so that it's not vicious towards the wrong people. And this is the same as our passions. They need to be a little bit vicious in order to be passionate and to identify the animal within us. We need that. And yet we do have to control them, or we're in harm's way, and we're likely to destroy all of our social circumstances. So if we think about the qualities that make up a thunderstorm, we can see how they apply to us too. So a thunderstorm is created when air pressure and other factors of the physical world build up a kind of a tension, which is that which creates static electricity, and there's a magnetism and a build-up of this to phenomenal degrees. So it's an electrical build-up, a build-up of tension that creates a magnetism that pulls into itself the opposite principle. And then there's an explosion, really, and this creates sound and vibration and a release. That's what a thunderstorm is like. And we have that going for ourselves. We build up this inner tension. And actually, the tension that arises because of our emotional hurts and problems actually has a charismatic quality. Boring people are boring, but people who have gone through painful situations, they're not boring. They're actually interesting. And that capacity to interest people is a magnetism. And they can stoke up situations to make them emotionally dramatic. And we know that we're interested in this because of what we watch in entertainment. All of the television programs we watch are centered around drama, the build-up and release of tension. Whether it's a violent film or a romantic film, it's the same principle. There's a build-up of tension and then a release, and then we feel good. This is what we're structured around, this whole thing. So thunderstorms are very natural images of what's going on within us pretty much most of the time. It's very few people without drama in their lives. Even those who seem to be settled and peaceful or boring, even those, they've got their own passions and they've got their own dramas. And this is actually what life is. It's a movement between peaks of dramas, or a movement between troughs of boredom and despair and depression, whichever way you want to see it. But it's a movement from one state to the other. Now, some of us are much more passionate and we live life fully and richly, and we have adventures and we have dramas and we have lots of relationships, lots of friends, lots of different hobbies and types of work, and we move from one thing to the other, and we're restless with our passion. And that's our lives, and we tend to have the dramas. And some of us are more peaceful, and we like boring things, and we like predictability, and we like to have our family, not too much of this or that, and everything's just the way it needs to be for us not to be disturbed. Now, neither one of those conditions is right or wrong. It's what you are that matters. If you're a passionate, dramatic person, you need to be that way. And if you're not, then you need not to be that way. And that's the truth of it. However, even with that, we will have thunderstorms occasionally. So even if you're wanting a peaceful life, you must also know that at some point that peace will be disturbed, and you need to know how to rise to the occasion. If you've denied your passions completely, you won't be able to, because whatever we have not done inwardly, we cannot do outwardly. That's life. So allow yourself a little bit of drama, and you keep yourself in the game.